Today's topic is...
breaking down the Second Legion's design and lore.
Wait, what? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to WAYPN. I'm Cal.
And I'm Sunny.
Today we'll be covering what?
The design and lore of the Second Legion.
But they don't have any lore nor a design.
Well, I guess we're gonna have to make one.
Oh, alright then. Sunny, what are we going to cover today?
Concept, Primarch, Legion design, Legion symbol, and practical application.
I shouldn't forget that. We don't want to be purged.
Ugh.
Concept.
We're going to treat this like we got a brief from a belligerent client.
The 2nd and 11th Legions do have lore. However, the lore that they do have is vague deliberately. But there are two definitive statements which are very important. That is that they are referred to as the Forgotten and the Purged.
The Second Legion is referred to as the Forgotten. As far as the Imperium is concerned, they did something bad, but not bad enough that they had to be purged like the 11th Legion.
The particularity of this epitaph means something. It doesn't mean that they are filled with hate when they think about this person.
Well, Legion, not a particular person.
Actually, this is going to be one of those sort of weird internet moments where I explained that it wasn't the Legion that was punished because there is a strong chance that they were integrated into the Imperial Fists and Ultramarines.
Then who are we upset at?
The Primarch.
Oh.
This is one of the key differences between making a custom chapter and a custom Legion. Primarch. So we thought it was important to give a potential candidate for a Primarch.
That would be Chandragupta and Ashoka.
In particular, a combination of these two, much like how many of the Primarchs are a combination of mythical figures.
Historical figures.
Well, the mythologized historical figures.
I see. The Primarchs have been modeled after historical figures of different cultures across the world. So that was one of the reasons why we chose Chandragupta, because he could come from a part of the world that hasn't exactly been filled in yet within the lore. And the second reason is that he actually fills in a lot of the mentalities that are close to how the Second Legion were.
Or rather, how he and Ashoka could have been similar to the Second Legion's Primarch.
Cal, can you explain to us why Chandragupta and Ashoka might be possible candidates for the Primarch?
Okay, the reason is because of the mentality they had when it came to warfare and conquest.
Chandragupta essentially bribed the Macedonian Empire,
The Empire of Alexander the Great,
with 500 elephants to leave the region so that he could continue his conquest for the rest of India.
Anyone familiar with 40k and its lore would understand why this would be a position that the Emperor would not be pleased about. You do not appease the enemy, you crush them. The only exception to this was the Mechanicus of Mars, and perhaps this is why he may have had lenience on this Primarch. Sorry, they were the Mechanicum of Mars back then, I think.
The second issue was the Tamil Kings.
Sunny, who were the Tamil Kings and why were they a problem?
Well, who the Tamil Kings was not as much as an issue as the resistance they put up. At this point, Chandragupta and Ashoka have already conquered most of India except for the region where the Tamil Kings ruled. But because of how much resistance they were putting, they actually thought it was too much trouble and left it alone, since they already had most of it anyway.
By most of it, you mean India.
Yes, sorry, I mean India.
Now there's one final thing that could put this Primarch on the naughty list, though there would be a different word that the Emperor might use.
Ashoka was one of the biggest supporters of this conquest. It was said that he wanted to do this conquest as part of his dharma, which is his duty, because he wanted to spread Buddhism to the rest of India. Mostly the idea of the renewal of the spirit and reincarnation, as well as karma.
Sunny, can you explain dharma and karma a little more?
For dharma, it means the right way of living, the virtues and laws that you must live by for a righteous lifestyle. With karma, it's actually the relationship between one's actions and the consequences that follows. It has nothing to do with good luck or bad luck. It's just the understanding of how your actions have consequences.
Sonny, you tell me that every single Hindu story starts off with some demon gets a boon from the gods because they performed penance, was it?
That's right. So what it means is that it doesn't matter if you're a good person or a bad person. It's about the action and the consequence that follows. The demon performs penance, so he gets his just reward.
This is in line with some more radical inquisitors' views of the warp and the immaterium. Do the correct things and you will get the right rewards. It doesn't matter whether you are good, bad, or in between. All that matters is that you do the acts. This, alongside the idea of reincarnation, which we know was possible with the Emperor's story, may have provided a threat to the Empire. The nascent Imperium could not stand for such iconoclastic beliefs. This is not worship of the arch enemy, nor is it an outright denial or refusal of the warp and the chaos gods. For the Emperor, the ultimate enemy was ambiguity.
I see, and that seems to be very in line with what we see with Chandragupta and Ashoka.
So that is why we believe that an amalgam of these two characters would be a good fit for this Primarch.
But that's not the only thing we have to consider.
Legion design. For those of you who have watched our Meaningful Marines episode, a lot of this is going to seem familiar.
If you take a look at one of the color combinations that we looked at, it was for the Renegades color scheme, which was a combination of orange and teal. So the choice for orange and teal was not only because it was a complementary color scheme, so it's a color scheme that already works, but it's also a color scheme that represents the vitality and enthusiasm through orange, and also the flexibility and variability of water through the aqua color. If you darken the water color to a darker blue, it shows a bit more of a chaotic essence. If you lighten it towards an aqua color, it shows a more serene and natural springs type of vibe, which will give you two different types of
a heroic essence.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to break down the scheme a little more academically. So the first reason we choose orange is because it is the color of energy. It is also traditionally connected to the sun, which is going to be the symbol that we're going to be using for this legion, but we're going to get to that in a minute. Sunny, design language wise and color psychology wise, why did we choose orange?
Its traits would be sociability, spontaneity, vibrancy, youth, and it can also be impatient and superficial.
So there are associations, positive and negative traits in there. Why did we choose this color for those traits?
Because orange represents youthful, it could have been one of the reasons why this legion might have made the error that they did. They are inexperienced and ended up making a mistake that they shouldn't have made. Next would be sociability. If we take a look at the tactics that they have used and the tactics that we have described earlier, sociability doesn't seem to be something that the Imperium advocates for. They want to be very authoritarian, but with them, they seem to want to take on tactics like bribing and things where they don't need to fight to solve all of their problems.
So orange takes on the ideas of the more youthful, energetic, and sociable side. Now let's go on to teal.
Well, more specifically the aqua family, so you could go light or dark, not teal specifically.
Alright, let's get into it.
The reason we choose aqua is because of its connotations with water and the different types of water. For lighter aquas like turquoise and cyan, it has a more peaceful and serene characteristic. It is symbolic of peace and harmony, and it also represents the rivers that it comes from. With darker aquas like teal, it is more treacherous because it represents the sea. The sea has always been a dangerous place. It can kill us and it represents chaos. But that's not the only thing it represents. It also represents free thinking and introspection. And if we follow the ideas of Chandragupta and, how they wanted to spread Buddhism, this would be very much in line with what the Second Legion would have done.
I do believe it was Ashoka more than Chandragupta.
Yes, this is correct.
So with these color choices, you can see how if you lighten them or if you darken them, there's a lot of variability in this color scheme with its meanings. We feel that its meanings would fit that of a legion that would be forgotten but not purged. Legion symbol.
The symbol we have chosen is the Ashoka Chakra.
The reason why we have chosen this symbol is because almost all of the Legion symbols are really a knock it out of the park as far as design goes. So rather than making a new symbol, we instead chose one that has a special relationship with the Legion. The symbol is that of a stylized sun.
It means that there is life in movement and death in stagnation.
In fact, the reason why it has 24 rays is because they represent the hours of the day that you must always be moving within this cycle. And what is the Imperium known for?
Well, the modern Imperium is known as a stagnant empire.
Exactly. So this is why they could be forgotten, because the Imperium is so rigid and stagnant. These ideas posed a fundamental threat to the way that the Imperium would be run. And finally, the last part of our video. Practical application. When we did the idea of a modern update for the Dark Angels, we went over some variations that people could use and why they might want to use them. Sunny, if we were to get this commission from Games Workshop, what are the kinds of things that you would present to them as an artist?
Well, we would start off with a mood board, which would consist of the color choices that you'd like to use, stylistic choices you'd like to use, and certain symbols that you'd like to use to represent how things come together to make sure that things fit in line with the Legion that you're building.
This mood board would also include things such as variations for them.
Yes, exactly, because you never go to a client without showing them different options.
Would these variations have explanations attached?
Yes, exactly, because each design needs to show the reasoning for why you have chosen to do things the way that you have.
Okay, aside from the lightening or darkening of the colors, what other variations could they expect to see on this sheet?
First small thing we could take a look at is the lenses. So if we want to make them look more kindly, we could use green lenses. If we want to make them look fearsome, we could use red lenses. Green also fits very well with the aqua theme, and that'll contrast well with that. And red actually is closer to the orange, so it's just a different pop of color that you can use without breaking the theme of the colors.
We also talked about the idea of helmet variations.
Now, it doesn't matter if you want to use these helmet variations for just the sergeants or the whole Legion, but we were thinking of white because that would show their inexperience and also their purity of thought in the way that they approach things. Or you could use black, which is the exact opposite of this intention, that it shows that they're very dogmatic and fixed on their creed and they are unchanging in their ways.
Because black is representative of the absolute.
Yes, correct.
You also had thoughts on their pauldrons.
Yes, we could use the elements of the 3 lion heads from the symbol of Ashoka for their pauldrons.
So this would be for characters such as sergeants, lieutenants, captains and such?
Yes, that would be good because the lion also represents leadership qualities, so it would be good for people who have earned that station. The way I imagine it would look is that the lion heads would be sculpted into the pauldron rather than protruding outwards. This would also make things a lot easier in terms of movement and not so clunky in design.
However, we would present the other design because that's what we'd want to show to a client, correct?
Yeah, yes, exactly.
And Games Workshop has never really shied away from clunky before, have they?
No, they have not.
And let's say that Games Workshop goes with that clunky design, what would balance it out on the other side for their symbol of command?
Well, that would depend on their chapter. There's lots of things that can represent death in Indian mythology, which would be the conch shell or even the cobra snake.
Okay, when you said the cobra snake, I got it. If you had have said Vishnu, I would have gotten it. But the conch shell?
The conch shell is something that you would blow during a funeral. So that is why it's representative of death.
I thought it was a call for war or something like that.
I believe it's also a call for war, but that is something that we use as a phrase in Tamil is Sangu Udana Andi.
And finally, you wanted to talk about their accent color as a breaker and why it has meaning behind them.
Just like with the Dark Angels, they use steel for their visual breakers to break up all the dark and the black. We would be using gold because in Indian culture, gold represents the positive conductor of energy. So that is why that would be a good visual breaker to use for the trims.
Okay, are there any other design elements you can think of that should be incorporated?
Well, another thing that we do have is a lot of circular or spherical designs that you'll see in the way that we design crowns and jewelry, which could be added as little bits of elements here and there in the way that the metal is shaped.
So similar to the Alpha Legion with the scales, they could have circular patterns in the design of their powered armor.
Yes, exactly.
Alright folks, that's it for us, but one thing that we would really love you guys to do is to comment. We usually don't ask this, however, we feel in this case that it's probably a good idea to get your feedback, because this isn't exactly the same as before, where we did a proper breakdown. We want to know, is this the kind of thing that you'd like to see for the 11th Legion as well, or would you like to see us go in a different direction? Oh, and we have one last request for you. Keep those brushes wet. Bye-bye. Sunny has a special plea for you.
Well, everyone who has enjoyed our video series on colors and whatnot have told us that it's been helpful for them because it fills in gaps that they never thought could be filled. And that's why we want to ask if these design series, is it helpful for you guys to sort of piece together all the information that we have given you through the color series, from deciding how to choose colors to why you would choose design elements, and does this help you guys understand on how to turn text into visual context.
Can I just get you to clarify that last bit of text into visual context?
So this series is all about turning law, whatever you read, into an actual thing in reality, turning into a visual piece. So that's what I meant by turning text into visual context.
Alright, is there anything else that you can think of that you wanted to add?
No, I just wanted to figure out if this was helpful, and thank you for everyone who has watched all our videos so far.
Yes. Thank you for helping our channel become what it has become.